Many people in the world today have the perception that the sectarianism within the Muslim community was driven by faith, but today is driven by the desire for power, resources, and political control. And here is why. In the 7th century, a new faith was unveiled to the world, a religion that is based on allegiance to one God referred to as Allah. The religion of Islam is also an Abrahamic religion that acknowledges spiritual figures such as Adam, Moses, and Jesus as prophets of Allah, rejecting all acts of polytheism and idolatry. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the messenger sent with the message of the religion contained in the Quran, which unites people of different backgrounds and ancestries. The message was passed across the Arabian Peninsula and built a great large community of diverse people. Today, Islam is said to be practiced by an estimate of 1.8 billion people across the globe, having Indonesia with the largest number of over 219 million Muslims, and Vatican City with the least population of not less than 800 Muslims. There are approximately 50 Muslim majority countries in the world, but according to the Pew Research Center, there are 51 Muslim majority nations, including territories, West Bank, Gaza Strips, Mayotte, and Western Sahara across the globe. After the demise of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Muslims split into two divisions, Sunni and Shia. The two divisions or factions were both political to retain the successorship of the Muslim Ummah after the demise of Muhammad. For the Sunni, they believe Prophet Muhammad didn't leave any successor. He didn't point out any person to succeed him in the leadership of the Ummah. The Muslims should decide who should lead them through. Unlike the Shia, who believed that Muhammad assigned his cousin, who was his son-in-law Ali bin Abi Talib, to succeed him as the leader of the Muslim Ummah. The Sunni believe in consensus and not lineage or dynasty when it comes to the leadership of the Muslim community, while the Shia believe that succession should be on the bloodline. That is why they favored the Prophet's son-in-law Ali bin Abi Talib. This was the genesis of the movement Shi'ata Ali. They also believed that it was a divine order by Allah for Ali to be the successor of Muhammad, for the religion to be spiritually guided. In 632 AD, the split of the Muslim community led to serious chaos on who should succeed the Prophet. Finally, the Sunnis succeeded in electing Abu Bakr as the Caliph. Many of the Quraysh, people of Mecca, and Ansar, the people of Medina, pledged their allegiance to Abu Bakr except the few that rebelled against the system and continued to support Ali bin Abi Talib. Abu Bakr remained the Caliph and reigned from 632 AD to 634 AD. Umar bin Khattab was the second from 634 AD to 644 AD. And Uthman bin Affan was the third Caliph, who reigned from 644 AD to 656 AD. All the three caliphs were chosen by the Sunni faction, which lasted for 24 years. Ali bin Abi Talib was eventually chosen as the fourth caliph, but his ruling was short. He was assassinated by the Kharijites. His two sons, Al-Hassan and Al-Hussein, wanted to take his place, but they were also denied the right to retain the caliphate, which led to a civil war. The power struggle of their opposition was not only the Prophet's legacy, but the power of the entire Arabian Peninsula, the money involved, tax and tributes paid by various tribes. This was what led to a civil war and resulted in the dispersal of the caliphates to the Umayyad dynasty in the capital of Syria, Damascus, from 661 to 750 AD. It then returned to the Abbasid in Baghdad from 750 to 1258 AD. The Shiites rejected the authority of both the Sunni rulers Umayyads and the Abbasid. They kept fighting and agitating for their beliefs. Al-Hassan and Hussein were both martyred in the cause. Al-Hassan led a group of 72 men from Mecca to Karbala, which is now in Iraq, The Shia believes he went out to salvage the religion of Islam by confronting the corrupt Caliph of the Umayyad, Yazid bin Muawiyah. A massive army of the Umayyad killed Al-Hussein and his companions in Karbala. He was decapitated and brought to Damascus as tribute to the Caliph. The Sunni thought this would end all claims of the leadership of the Ummah by the Shia, but their actions were the opposite. Al-Hussein martyrdom becomes a watershed moment for the Shia, an inspiration, a motivation for the struggle, a defining moral story of their traditions, and a hallmark of their identity and existence. Today, this is commemorated each year as Ashura, the 10th day of the month of Muharram. They mark it with collective atonement and self-flagellation. The Battle of Karbala sharpened the division between the Sunni and the Shia. The Sunni were with the fear that the Shia will use it to gain sympathy and public imagination. They persecuted and marginalized the Shia and portrayed them as heretics and apostates. In the 16th century came the first Shiite dynasty, the Safavid Empire, which transformed Iran from a Sunni center to a Shia stronghold in West Asia. Shia Islam was made the state religion in 1501 to 1736 AD. They fought the Ottomans, the seat of the Sunni Caliphate. From those power struggles emerged a series of Sunni and Shia dynasties and spread from Central Asia to Africa, from Europe to the Indian subcontinent. During the start of the European colonialization, these dynasties faded, but the Sunni and the Shia differences did not. In the early 20th century, the empires took the shape of countries. The legacies result to the new demographic segmentation. More Shia Muslims settled in Iran, Iraq, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, and Lebanon, and a small community in India and Pakistan. Today, they comprises of 10% of the Muslim population. The remaining 90% are Sunni Muslims. The differences was never resolved to date, and the race for leadership and power continues to date. The Muslim community remains united in the religion as Muslim, but divided in their doctrines, views, laws, theology, jurisprudence, and rituals. Most of the time, the Shiite and the Sunnis live in relative peace throughout most of their history. The distinction was largely irrelevant, but starting from the late 20th century, the schism deepened and exploded into violence and bloodshed, with a centralized goal to attain religious and political supremacy. Sectarian violence is still instigated among Muslims, driven by the ancient division that has lasted along for decades. There have been Sunni-Shia civil wars and conflict in the Middle East, Bahrain, Yemen, Iraq, etc., which are all driven by the political ideologies of the factions. In the year 1979, when a revolution took place in Iran and the new brand of Shia Islam emerges, it clashes with the Sunni conservatives in Saudi Arabia. Both the autocracies started fighting for religious and political control, and they both got sucked into this power struggle. Iran and Saudi have never declared war on each other. Instead, they fight proxy wars indirectly, supporting opposite sides in other countries at war with each other: Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, Lebanon, etc. They are both aping up sectarianism to serve their political interest. The division isn't driven by faith, it is driven by a desire for power, resources, and control. Even after the duo agreed on most of the fundamental beliefs and practices of Islam, the bitter split between them continues to escalate to date, and the struggle for supremacy remains camouflaged as a religious and doctrinal faction.